Welcome back to Desk Careers, everybody. I'm so excited to have another amazing guest with us here at our Desk Careers Spotlight series. Today, we welcome Amani Gharib, who is the International Advisor for the University of British Columbia, based out in Canada. Welcome, Amani. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. So thanks again.
It is a real pleasure to have you here. And of course, being Canadian myself, I'm really excited to be bringing the University of British Columbia to our students and our community. But before we get into the details of the university, I'd like to talk a little bit about your career path and your career journey, because I think it's important that young people look to role models such as yourself and be able to identify some of the challenges that you might have faced and how you've overcome them with resilience from being a younger teenager to who you are today. So let's go back to your academic interests. I know that as a student, you were interested in business, management, marketing, and entrepreneurship. How did those interests shape who you've become today?
So I guess before I begin, and the first thing I want to say is I just think it's important for me to acknowledge that being in high school is not always 100% easy. And choosing a career path can be frightening at times. And so I just wanted to start speaking to that, and just to kind of let all students know that not knowing what you want to pursue, it's normal, but that's why it's important that we try and develop a plan, we try and set some goals, and we try to figure out exactly what it is that interests us. So as you mentioned, I'm Canadian myself. I grew up almost my entire life in Canada, and where I pursued a bachelor degree in business administration. And I guess what made me first decide on that path was when I was in high school, I kept asking myself this question: what do I enjoy? And what courses or what programs in high school am I really, really fond of? And I found that it was just really, I was happy whenever there were business courses, or whenever I took accounting courses or marketing related courses. And that kind of helped me put together a plan, set myself some goals in pursuing a bachelor degree in business administration. And so I attended the Richard Ivey School of Business in Ontario. And then I went on to pursue a master's degree in also a business related program called Service Leadership and Innovation. Now, my master's degree was pursued in a US university. It's an American curriculum and whatnot, and it was a wonderful, wonderful program. So pursuing my master's degree, I realized I just don't want to stop. I want to keep going. I want to keep learning, because at the end of the day, it's important that we try to be lifelong learners, because pursuing a degree is one thing, but then just consistently learning and consistently upgrading whatever knowledge, set or skills that we have is always key in any career path you choose. And so I went on to pursue my PhD, and this time in a UK university. And so it's really interesting because I have that broad scope of experience in a Canadian university, in a US university, and a UK university. And I am where I am today because of the different learning and the different programs that I've taken, as well as the different training opportunities that I was fortunate enough to tap into. And so that's a little bit of a background on my educational career path. And then I guess what really helped me shape the person that I am today, and the fact that I wear so many hats today, I am an international advisor for University of British Columbia in Canada. I'm also an entrepreneur. So I run and manage my own weddings and events company in Canada, and I do some consulting on the side. And I'm also a full-time PhD student. And so, so that's just a little bit of a background about my career path and how I decided to pursue this path and to get started on this particular journey.
Incredible. And I love that you brought up your entrepreneurship and still wearing that hat. This is a topic that I find myself speaking more and more about with the youth. The idea of having one career for life no longer exists. It's very, very common, just as you've described yourself. There's always a side hustle. There's something that we're doing to kind of supplement and complement our interests in our career. And I think through this pandemic, what I have seen are those individuals who did have something kind of in parallel to their full-time employment have found the ability to stay resilient through economic challenge. And unfortunately, with some layoffs, having that side hustle meant there was still something to be focusing on while waiting for that employment to kick back in again. Have you found this resilience, this ability to keep going, this creativity to find other avenues? Because doing what you do with universities and events for weddings, very different clientele, very different focus, but very similar transferable skills required to do both, I would imagine. Do you find that you're naturally resilient, that you've naturally found the energy and the drive to do these things, or has there been a pinnacle role model in your life that shaped these ideas in you?
You know, I think it all comes down to having the grit and having the confidence in what you can offer this world. And you mentioned COVID. I mean, these are unprecedented times to live through a pandemic. And this is going to be carved out in history. We're all going to be part of history. And I think the fact that it's a global pandemic and the fact that the entire world is dealing with this, it's not just one city or one country or one state and continent, it's the entire world. And I feel that there's no wrong way of handling a pandemic on a personal and professional level, but I do always strive to never give up. And I always look at any gaps as opportunities. I mean, when I was young, it all started when I was really young. As a child, I think I was 6 or 7 years old. I started selling my toys to my parents so that they can give me the money so that I can go buy new toys. I remember growing up when I was in high school, grade 9, our house driveway was cracked. And so I looked up different ways of how to fix it. And then I realized, oh, wow, this is easy. I can fix the driveway cracks and it just takes a couple of hours. It's not costly. Let me start a driveway sealing company. I did the same with landscaping. And growing up, I just feel like I've always had that drive to just look at any gaps as opportunities and pursue these opportunities, whether it's running my own company or offering a service or even selling a product. And so I feel like this resilience grew with me, and a lot of it has to do with the support and the push that I get from my parents and from my family. And no idea was a far-fetched idea. No idea was beyond reach. Any idea I came up with, they were very supportive and they said, go for it, even if it was very crazy, like a 14-year-old running a driveway sealing company. And so I find that going back to a pandemic, and whether you're a student or an employee or an entrepreneur, a business owner, I think it's really important to adapt. And I think adaptability is key. Things will never be rainbows and butterflies. Things will never be perfect, pandemic or no pandemic. And even students, as they grow and develop and pursue future careers, they too will face issues. It may not be a pandemic, let's hope not, but another one. But I think it's important to be, like you mentioned, resilient and to be adaptable and to be able to adapt to change and look at things positively, and just never give up, and know that you're not in this alone, and that whatever you're struggling with, there are hundreds and thousands and millions of people out there who are going through the same thing. I mean, in the US alone, I read an article in Forbes the other day that said that approximately 36 million people lost their jobs in the US alone because of this pandemic. And so I know that it's not easy, but at the same time, it's important to not give up, and it's important to adapt and to be agile in order for you to succeed.
I know that your top 3 career tips is, as you discussed, never to give up, to take every hurdle as an opportunity. Right back, I can hear that you were doing that even as a young child, in sealing the driveway, and then enjoying the journey. Being in the role of advising the youth and going into university, being that international advisor, how do you see youth looking at that next chapter in their lives? And what are some of the tips that you can offer them to not only make the right choices for them, but also be aware of where those choices, employment-wise, can be leading them?
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to mention, and that's why right before I started speaking, I wanted to acknowledge that this isn't easy. And when I'm advising youth, prospective students, generally around the world, I've traveled almost the Middle East and Africa region, speaking to prospective students, and providing them with advice and guidance on choosing their next path. I don't want to say the right path, because there is no such thing as a right path. There's no right or wrong path, because ultimately the path that students or youth choose for themselves, that's their journey, and that's their decision and their choice, and ultimately this decision will shape their future, but it's not carved in stone. Like, for example, my husband, he did his bachelor degree in civil engineering, but then he realized when he entered the market that maybe that's not so much, that's not what he's so passionate about. So he went on to do an MBA, and he's now doing a PhD in management. So he's completely changed his career path from that of engineering to business. And it can go the opposite. It could go, I know so many people who have done that as well. But I guess to go back to the initial question, in terms of what do I advise students or youth, normally what I do is I split it up into do's and don'ts in selecting your future journey or your career path. I guess for the do's, usually what I like to say is, first and foremost, it's important that you develop a plan and that you set goals. And I mentioned this earlier as well, because this is key, and this is the foundation of any decision that youth are going to be making for their career, for their professional life, even personal life. And I did mention that not knowing what you want to study and pursue is also okay. That's not an issue, but we need to identify that that's the case. And once it's identified, then it's important that students are tapping into resources, tapping into support, speaking to mentors and advisors like yourself, asking the right questions. And that's what I mean by developing a plan and setting goals, because again, this is a lifelong journey. It's a learning journey, and students need to keep challenging themselves. I mentioned a mentor. It's important. I mean, if a student has a role model or someone they look up to, it could be a friend, it could be someone they've worked with, they volunteered with. It could be yourself. It could be, anyone that they feel might be able to guide them in making their decisions. I think it's important for students to ask themselves, what do I aspire to be? And who do I aspire to be like? And who can really help me in my career path? And I think ultimately finding that mentor and having these conversations will really help shape their decision. And then you've got youth and students who know exactly what they want. And for those youth, I always tell them, you know, even when you know what you want, it's also important to develop a plan and to set goals for yourself and figure out, where do I want to study? What do I want to get out of this degree? What kind of experiences can I tap into in order for me to be as successful as I can possibly be, you know, and how, you know, create the best version of myself. So that's kind of what I would advise students in the under the umbrella of do's. And I think another point is future foresight. It's important that we understand which careers are going to continue and which careers may no longer be with us 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. And I think students and youth, it's important for them to know that whatever career path they choose or decide on, if that's actually going to be here in about 10 years. And this is through future foresight. So for them to kind of, for example, now we know with the rise of technology and AI and whatnot, roles like, you know, certain customer service jobs will no longer be available or will no longer be in existence in 10, 20 years. Certain, you know, like travel agencies, data entry roles. And so it's important that students keep that in mind when they're also making their decisions. Now, going on to the don'ts, I always like to say, first and foremost, do not eliminate certain careers and fields just because you feel like it might not be compatible with your future. So if a student really enjoys a certain industry, so for example, I mentioned engineering first, let's say medicine. I think it's important for students to not eliminate the study of medicine just because they feel like, oh, but what if I become a doctor and then I'm going to have a family and then I may not have time to practice. Try not to make decisions based on, you know, your future setup, because we never know our future. We don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so if you're really passionate about a certain career and you really feel like this is the career path you want to take, don't eliminate it. The other don't that I usually like, and I know it sounds a little harsh, don't, but it's just because of the do's and don'ts. The other one I would mention is, don't look at salary. I've had many conversations with students in the past where they say, tell me which job can I get in the future that will get me the highest salary. There's no particular job or career or industry that pays more than any other industry. There's no such thing. Sometimes you can be a doctor and you can make more than someone in a business industry, or you can have someone in a business industry making more than someone in the health field or healthcare field. And so an engineer might make more in terms of salary than a teacher. In other cases, a teacher may make more in terms of salary. And so it's important that we don't base our decisions on salaries. And it's important to look at what you love and what you enjoy, because ultimately that's what's going to last in any job that you take on in the future. Another, don't be shy. Seek out mentors, speak to people, ask hard questions. There is no wrong question. There is no silly question. Any question at this point is viable and it's important. And so if you have that particular question, it's important to ask and to seek guidance and to seek support. The other thing I wanted to mention, and that was basically the basis of what we were talking about earlier, is just don't give up. Take it one step at a time. And although it could be daunting and frightening to kind of have to feel like you have to pick a career path, like I said, I use my husband as an example. He changed his career completely halfway through his life. So you're not stuck in a certain career for the rest of your life. And as you grow and as you develop and as you start working in industry, you will get a better sense of what it is that you enjoy, what it is that you like to do. And then from there on in, you'll be able to make decisions to kind of change that path. And that's okay. I'm not sure if you know this, but I think there's a book out there on millennials by Neil Howe. And he basically says that approximately 5% of millennials how can I say this? Only 5% of millennials end up choosing the perfect career path right from the get-go, right from the beginning. And so that's such a powerful stat, because that goes to show that you'll make decisions, but these decisions will ultimately be molded and modified and altered as you grow and develop in your journey. So that's kind of the advice that I would share.
Definitely some great tips to be listening to, and it's so great to hear that coming from someone in a position where you're dealing with international students all the time, considering traveling back to Canada and studying at the University of British Columbia. What would you say are the top 3 common mistakes that students are making when they're considering applying to university?
I think, and this is just based on experience, I think the number one mishap, I would say, not so much a mistake, because like I said, there is no right or wrong. I would just say sometimes students who don't really know what they want to study, and this is what I've found, is they'll just kind of ride the wave and do what their friends are doing, or pursue what their friends are pursuing. And I really feel that it's important for each student to make their own choices based on their own journeys and experiences, because not one person is the same. And so if there's a group of friends that are all going to a specific university to study a specific program, let's say, for example, biology, don't just make that decision because they're all doing it. You need to figure out what it is that you want to pursue and what you want to study and what you want to get out of your education as well. And right now with the internet, I mean, the internet is such a powerful tool that something as simple as a Google search, it can really help you pinpoint what kind of careers you might enjoy. And so that would be the first, mishap or the first point that I would love for students to just kind of try and not do. Then the second one would be just being very stressed out about the process and antsy and worrying so much about this decision. It's easy for me to say it now that I'm 15 years into industry and into work, and looking back, what I would have told myself is don't stress out about this. It's okay. Yes, I understand it's not easy, but enjoy this journey, enjoy this process, because it's just such a beautiful time in your life where you're trying to decide on what to do in your life, the next level or the next step in your life. And so try to enjoy it and try not to let it stress you out and give you the anxieties that are so unnecessary. And then the third one, I think, is, and I mentioned this under the don'ts umbrella, but just don't pick certain fields because of salary or because of the industry or because of how you would look in a community, just try and pursue something that you love and something that you enjoy, because ultimately that's what's going to stay with you and that's what's going to last. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Amani. It's been such a pleasure hearing all of your tips, and I know that they're very, very insightful tips. What are some of the other things outside of the school environment that international students should be aware of if they want to study in British Columbia?
I think, and I'm going to be biased. I mean, I know I studied in different curricula, Canadian, US, UK. Canada's home for me. And so there's a bit of bias with Canada, but if there's a student that's looking to pursue, education at the University of British Columbia, I would just specifically University of British Columbia, because the university has two campuses, one in Vancouver and one in the city of Okanagan. I think it's important that students also try to figure out exactly what kind of environment they want to study in. I mean, Vancouver is it's a bigger city, a completely different experience than Okanagan, but both provide academic excellence. I just think it's important that before students apply, that number one, they figure out which career they want to pursue. But what's really nice about UBC is you have two options. You can actually choose two different careers, and you can also decide between the two campuses as well. The second point to consider is in terms of your overall university experience, your student life, what kind of environment do you want to be part of? Would you like to be part of the Vancouver life, or would you like to be part of Okanagan? And then the third would be just to kind of, better understand Canada and the province of British Columbia as a province and as a country, like just having a better understanding of where the university stands and, the global recognitions that it has, because ultimately that will also be with you when you attend a university that is highly recognized globally. So, for example, like UBC, it's in the top 40 research universities in the world. It's number one in the world for quality of life. Number one in the world for combating climate change. So things like this, try and see if these particular facts about the university are in line with your goals and your aspirations, and being part of a university that can not only give you that academic route path or journey, but a university that also gives you that personal and professional development in terms of what it is that you love to do. So yeah.
Thank you. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And it's true. I always say this to young people: is you're not just applying to university, you're actually creating a lifestyle, and you want to make sure that the environment that you're selecting is aligned with the kind of lifestyle that you're hoping to live through those 3 or 4 years at university. Thank you so much, Amani. That brings us to the end of another amazing conversation. Today we spoke with Amani Gharib, who is the international advisor and entrepreneur. She's here talking to us about top tips for the youth in applying to university, and she comes to us from the University of British Columbia. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all at our next Desk Careers Digital Spotlight.
Thank you very much.